Good evening, TNT family. We are back on Yellow is the Code with Mr. Ved Sriram, and we also have Mr. Suman Singh with us here tonight. And Mr. Sriram, want to welcome you back to UNC USA or Yellow is the Code program. I want to thank you for taking the time to joining us. Mr. Sriram, we continue to see chaos with the central bank and the bull-facedness blatant bullfishness of the governor of the central bank, where he thinks he has the authority to keep certain information from the prime minister and this new government who's trying to analyze the country financial situation. And, I find this highly disrespectful. And I would like to get your input on how you see things from your perspective.
Yes, good evening, Gary. Good evening, Sumant. Good evening, all viewers and listeners. Thank you again, Gary, for inviting me. It's always a privilege to be invited to speak about national interest. Well, that's why I think I started the article by saying this is certainly an amazing place. We are not real. We are not real. And we have to ask the question. I don't want to bring the politics in it too much, but if the PNM had asked him, would he have said no? But coming back to the data that is being requested, as far as I could see, it's a legitimate request. If the Prime Minister needs it, and she wants to be assured that the system is working fairly. And the best person to ask is the central bank governor, because they'll be getting the daily sales from the commercial banks, and therefore they will know exactly who and how much they are being bought and sold. Excuse me. So, for him to object to it, it means to say that they're not seeking the national interest, because you need data to make proper analysis and make proper decisions in the best interest of Trinidad and Tobago at this time when foreign exchange is so scarce. And in my assessment, two important items on the agenda that must be addressed with regards to the future for Trinidad and Tobago is crime and the access to foreign exchange. So if you are hiding that data, refusing on some flimsy ground that there's secrecy and so on, there's another act that I need to look at really is the Foreign Exchange Act itself, to see whether that prevents the disclosure of information. But let me put it this way. If there are many ways to skin the FX cat, many ways. Now, if we assume that most of the usage of FX is for imports, that's a reasonable assumption, then the Customs and Excise Division falls under the Ministry of Finance.
Correct.
Now, accessing the data from there would not give you 100% of the purchases, because other persons will be going to the banks to purchase foreign exchange for travel, for various personal reasons, um, for for sending their paying their kids tuition fees abroad and so on. So there's a percentage that would not be captured away from the customs and excise, but that falls under the Ministry of Finance, and I'm sure he would have picked that up by now to get the information. So I think the central bank is just being objectionable, and I think it reflects badly on the central bank and the governor of the central bank, and they are making a big issue about nothing. This is nothing. In fact, what I would recommend that all sales of foreign exchange be put in a database that any citizens in Trinidad should be able to access it.
But
Make it
Mr.
simple.
Sriram, it is clearly seen they're making it very obvious that they're trying to hide something, that they're trying to cover up something, and they're making it very obvious that there has been a lot of corruption, according to what we speculate, by his conduct alone. I mean, he's making himself look more guilty than maybe he is. And who is he trying to cover up for? And first of all, the government has a right to request certain information to analyze our financial standing and how we can conduct business in moving forward. The government cannot make financial decision if we don't know what we have in the bank and how we can proceed. Where there's so many goods and services to deliver, and people are desperate, and they want the government. Remember, the government made some promises, and some people expected that the government was going to wave a magic wand and it was going to happen the next day. And this is not so. We have things to fix. But go ahead.
No, but you're so right. So as far as I could see, is to get the data otherwise and to make your decisions, because Trinidad finances in a very difficult, precarious position. And we cannot waste time waiting on the central bank governor. It's just to ignore him for the time being. And in the fullness of time, you'll deal with his objection. If you have to change the laws or whatever, or make the laws very, very clear that if it's requested by the Minister of Finance, make a request to the central bank governor. They must respond within 5 working days. Make the law very clear. We are dealing with people who are going to interpret any law so that they avoid responsibility, and make it very clear to them. Make
Speaking
one
of
and
law,
one.
before you go on, Faris changed the rules of engagement in the parliament for a simple majority many times, excluding the opposition, right? Now we have a special majority, and we need to roll with that. The fact that, I mean, to deal with these laws that need to be put in place.
Well, as you mentioned, Faris, he cannot do that. That should have been taken to the courts immediately and overturned. You cannot
Yeah, there
change.
was a lot of
Ama-
times in the parliament that they went ahead with passing laws.
No, but that's mischief in public office, and these are things that we should be challenged in court. And if you follow what is happening in the UK today, the court rules against Starmer because he's trying to negotiate behind the citizens' back some kind of agreement with the EU, and the court stopped him. The court stopped him. So we have to use the courts, and we have brilliant lawyers within the UNC. Is to lead, just introduce the issues and let them deal with it in a very aggressive manner. Very aggressive manner. That is not a statute bar. Let it be brought before the court as well. The guy got away with murder. Paris got away with murder. He just decide which one should be what you call without the majority in
So
parliament. That is madness. And worse yet, with a simple majority, he was changing an act that required a special majority. Please explain that to me. I'm in standard one. Please explain how that happened. How that happened. You
Well,
cannot change.
yeah.
You cannot change a law that requires the majority with a simple majority. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as when that occurred. I said, "My goodness, what's happening to Trinidad and Tobago?" And they got away with it, not once, but twice or three times.
yeah, we have seen that done a few times in the parliament. This previous government walked all over us very bold-facedly, put their knee in our necks too many times. They kicked us around too many times, and we have to deal with them. Now they're moving very swiftly to cover up their actions and to try to derail this government from dealing with the situation and dealing with them too.
Well, this is where I think the UNC and the people, citizens of Trinidad, has to be very cautious. Times are changing in the world today. It's not like before. And I think the Prime Minister has demonstrated her willingness to deal with difficult issues. So I think we have to get all the professionals behind her and deal with it in a very professional manner, not to force anything as a matter that we now have, let's say, the majority in parliament, but deal with it very structured so that we have lasting changes that cannot be challenged 10 years from today. So with regards to the central bank governor, If I was the prime minister, I would write him personally and ask for the information. Let him write back and say whatever he wants. Let him write back. But in the meantime, you need the data to make urgent policy decision, and you get that through other means, through CSO and through your customs and excise department, which falls under, which is a part of the Ministry of Finance. So they should be working feverishly. So within 24 hours, they could produce the data for the Prime Minister to deal with it, because this is a very urgent issue, very urgent.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes, if I may come in there,
Please.
this is one of the problems that I foresaw, that a lot of these ministers are new to their job. They just don't know, and I don't know who are their advisors are. But you can circumvent the system and get the information in the roundabout way. The information is there; it cannot be hidden. If the central bank governor decides he's not going to release that data, the Ministry of Finance will have most of that data with respect to the foreign imports and so on, and foreign exchange purchases. The banking system will have what the regular customers and so on who are going on vacation, but you can take a 12-month average on that and get that mean amount, the average of it, and use that for the time being.
Welcome,
And,
Dr. Ramro.
and even if they cannot give you, or they cannot, accumulate the data in a short space of time, well, use an average. You can work with a mean average representative. If you know the sum amount was $20 billion spent, we can work with an average on it and get at least a ballpark figure while you are waiting on the exact figures. So you have something to work with. You wouldn't start to work with, oh, we got the figures next 2 weeks, then we're going to start to project and implement our policies. No, that is wasting time. You're already wasting so much time now on just it is to and fro, which personally I cannot understand. Because if and I know I am the government and you are my employee, and you are refusing to give me information which is duly, you're supposed to be, that is your portfolio, man. Come on. Who are you reporting then to? Tell me, is it an entity unto themselves? Who is the central bank governor reporting to? Is it the government of Trinidad and Tobago, which is the people? And mind you, it's people's money, by the way. It's not his money. It's the money of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. So I find this very, very frustrating, but it shows that, it's been 5-6 weeks now, and they have not gotten anywhere closer to what the reality is. So work backwards, work alternatively, and then when he has to answer, he better come good with an answer to find out why the reasons he was not able to furnish the Forex usage. Yes?
You see, the problem here is, I mean, Sumant, you've been long in the business, and you don't wait for formal disclosure of information,
Correct.
When I was the treasurer of a major bank, our task was to trade in foreign exchange, and
Welcome,
we had to
Arjun.
determine who are the suppliers of these foreign exchange, and we were able to put together 80%, identified 80% of the suppliers of foreign exchange, which included other parties other than the oil and gas industry. So data collection is an art by itself, and we have many good persons in Trinidad who can actually do that kind of analysis. And let the central bank governor sleep on his secrecy. Let him sleep on it, because if the government are able to collect about 80-90% of where the foreign exchange is being used. The Prime Minister don't want that to marco somebody. It is to make major policy decisions for Trinidad and Tobago.
Correct.
So, and what we are not interested, first of all, in who is getting it, but what is it being used for?
Go.
And let's say for motor cars, we are using 50% of our foreign exchange to import motor cars. Then you say, okay, who are the ones who are getting these for the dealership? Who are the ones? But the first phase is, what are we importing? What are we using the foreign exchange for? So we have to be very technical when we are determining what data we need. And at the end of the day, I mean, we've probably closed the gap at the end of the day by coming up with some policy that there's fairness in the market. That there's fairness in the market. Right now, we cannot say that there's fairness in the market. That's why I've asked the central bank governor to disclose. Has he even asked the different banks to please disclose on what basis you allocate foreign exchange? So we need to sort this out urgently. Otherwise, we cannot let it drag on. We can't let it drag on, because in the next 6 months, probably another 1,000 SMEs are going to fall by the wayside. I have
Arjun and
people.
Dr. Ramrup, jump in whenever you feel you want to, please.
Yeah, hi, Dr. Amru.
Yes, yes, yes. I'm here. No, it's
Is
good.
that Mr.
I'm
Marat
listening.
as
I'm
well?
listening. Yeah,
I
I'm
still have
listening.
I
Yeah,
still have it on my phone, so I'm not seeing the name. That's Mr. Marat, is it?
yeah.
Arjun. Okay, great.
Hi, hi,
Thank you.
gentlemen. I
Yeah,
just
hi.
came in late tonight. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah,
But
hi.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Arjun is here and Dr. Stephen Ramrup.
yes, but
Um,
really,
Like,
I will, if I may say something,
Tell me.
the allocation of foreign exchange,
Hmm.
I firmly believe that it was a policy directive by the then government to follow that pattern. Because remember, what was said in PNM is that we, by making the rich richer, you know, you all, meaning his supporters, will eventually move up the economic ladder. So remember that when you sell foreign exchange to the motor car industry and they bringing in their vehicles, the PNM will justify that by saying, you know what, we are collecting a lot of taxes on this sale of foreign exchange.
Hmm. Yes,
You know,
yes.
so in that way, it delimits the amount available for the small and medium-sized industries who
Hmm.
require eh, foreign exchange for FF and E, quick sales furnishing, equipment, and so on. So you see, that's one. It's giving me the impression that that release of foreign exchange, especially to the motor vehicle company, in coordination with the banking system, making the loans easily available for these consumerables and so on, they use that as a yardstick to make the rich richer at the expense of the diversification of the economy, which we were talking about 9.5 years ago. They're still talking about it.
Hmm.
But now that I see, they say, okay, we are ready to implement after all these years in kindergarten. We can,
Hmm.
we can now implement. But implement what?
That is correct. After 50 years, we don't know what to implement. After 50 years,
Well, you
since I
see,
was at
the
university, they're talking about that.
here with them, where when you're building a house, you start for them, you start building the roof, and you start to load up the roof top heavy, and that is how they expect for the structure to
Mhm.
stand. But not taking into consideration in any structure, you have to strengthen the foundation, and your entire establishment or building is as strong as the foundation.
Correct.
But I believe that the government, by now, 6 weeks into government, they should have completed the audit exercise to see the state of affairs, financial affairs of the government as well as the country. So hopefully, I don't know when the 6 month, half year uh, report is going to be presented in Parliament. But you see, then once you do that exercise, then you can say how critical things are, or if it's not critical, it's fine. But if it's critical, we have to make certain very firm decisions, and that's what government are meant to do. Not just leave it like falling leaves in the wind to go wherever it pleases. We have to take control. Government has to take control. So hopefully now, through these discussions and so on, they already prepared the manifesto, so they can with gusto start implementing those things. And the question of motor cars. Let's say, for example, if there's a gap in our current account, trade account, we can say, okay, we're going to cut across the board,
Correct.
across the board, 25% of all imports,
Mhm.
25%. So we have to make some firm decisions immediately. Your 25%. Say, for example, uh, cars above a certain amount is just not allowed. Not allowed. We want to be like Singapore. Singapore don't allow you to buy a car unless one is culled from the stock. So we have to make some firm decisions that everybody understands. It's very simple. We can tell the banks, and that was my recommendation before, tell the banks reduce their excess foreign exchange within 6 months or three to 6 months. Bring it back to Trinidad and sell it. Doesn't matter how you sell it for the time being. We will determine how you sell it by
Correct.
our policies as to who you should sell it to. We have enough. So, man, I don't know when last you all have been to Trinidad, Arjun and Doctor.
I
But
was there last year.
do you know that we have construction companies with probably quarter mile of equipment line
Yes,
up?
absolutely.
Quarter
I'm
mile.
aware of that. Especially as I drive to the Southland, I see a lot of equipment parked up there in anticipation of, what they're going to get contracts. But at one point, you must remember who
Mhm.
are the people who is doing the audit for the government. I know in 2010 it was Deloitte. So I don't
Mhm.
know at this time if you want to employ or if they have employed the same public servants to do that.
Well, it should be a third party.
Correct. There
You
should be
can't
an
you can't
external
audit
source.
you can't audit yourself.
No, most likely most ministries have a little internal audit section, as you know.
Agreed,
So
agreed.
So they can look at the expenditure side of it to see how much.
Mhm.
Anyway, the outflows. But who is going to go through all these votes from the various heads and subheads and see where the money was spent or allocated? I sent you a
Mhm.
graph. I don't know if Gary sent you.
No,
Yeah,
I got it.
I sent it
Right.
to
I
him.
got
You
it.
see that wide diversion is almost 400 million.
But
I
but
mean,
let,
200 million above the allocated
no, but
amount.
let me ask a question, and you all in America, you will probably give us some perspective. If you have a budget for the year, it means to say you have a monthly budget.
Correct.
That's the nature. That's the
Yeah.
nature of the business. You have a monthly budget, and if every month now you're exceeding the budget, don't you have the obligation to come to Parliament and say, "Look, we anticipate a major shortfall by the end of the year, or by the end of the third quarter, end of the second quarter." You can't be hiding that from people. You ca- your government should come to a standstill immediately. If you Because my understanding, they already spent out the budget for the different ministries. You already spent it out.
Yes. Yes. The way how it works is that all department heads, they have to do a flow, a monthly flow expense
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
over 12 months. And, if you have 100 million, you will amortize that over the 12 months. But, and of course, the permanent secretary keeps a tab on that because he or she is the head of the accounting unit in each ministry. Now, I used to do it. from my side, I used to do it in the Ministry of Education as a
Mhm.
director there. But to tell me after 7 months, you have expended your votes already. So who is responsible for that? When I do a monthly projection, who then in that case, where is the variance analysis every month to show that, hey, you know what? Why am I spending $2 or $3 or $4 million more than I'm supposed to be spending? How do I justify that? So my head of or the head of the accounting unit, which is the permanent secretary, will call you up right away. And you have to justify and explain that.
Yeah, the question I'm posing, my understanding in the United States, if a budget is not approved, you really bring the government to a halt.
Yeah, that's as happened in Washington last year when
Right.
they
So
were threatening to shut down the country.
I'm thinking the same should apply, whether it is not specifically written in law, but the same should apply for Trinidad, because then that expenditure is unauthorized or not. Who has given them that authority? My understanding is only the parliament, and Arjun, perhaps you can enlighten me on it, but only the parliament can give you the authority to exceed budget.
Yeah, once the once the allocation has been made and approved by the parliament, any variation from that allocation has to come back for parliamentary approval. And typically what is done is, and that is why they have the mid-year budget review. So you come back after 6 months has elapsed and you know your position. You go back to the parliament and typically they ask for variations, in most cases additional funding, but more than that, they do what the former minister and permanent secretary said, they move money around. So they take a look at where they are, they refocus their priorities and so on. And then what they will do is take from one ministry's allocation and give it to another that is deemed to be of a higher priority. But you're absolutely right, Mr. Sriram. They can't do that willy-nilly. Then if they do that, then it makes the whole budgeting exercise and the weeks that we spend debating the budget in the parliament to be a farce.
Right.
There's no point in doing it.
So Arjun, I just want to really bring in into the realm of legality, and that is where I would like it to be examined then, whether they
Well,
could have legally done it.
as Mr. Sumant indicated to us a couple sessions ago in one of these sessions, what you find happening is typically the permanent secretaries take instructions from the minister when a particular government is in office, and they behave differently when another government is in office.
Correct.
So what you have happening here is, and very well, some of those budgets could have been blown in the month of March and April, just those 2 months alone.
Exactly.
Once the election date was announced, you would have had these expenditures and these hiring and these contracts and all of these things happening, in a mad rush. And the budget for the entire year could have been blown in just those 2 months alone. And we know they borrowed what, $1.5 billion. Right? So
But
did that, for example, have any parliamentary approval? Was there approval for those things?
But Arjuna, coming back to the point, the permanent secretaries and the civil servants, they're the technical people in the ministries, right?
But are they above the law? Are they above the law?
Yeah, but suppose the minister says jump from not level 16, jump from level 17. And that is the problem I have, where these are technical people. They should be putting foot down and telling the minister, no, we're in breach of section A, B, and C. Maybe the central bank governor, who is an expert on sections, could could advise them which sections they're in breach of.
No, but believe you me, in the next 5 years, they will know exactly which sections the ministers are in breach of.
Well, I'm saying is, and Sumant and Doctor, if you all can agree, I think this is an area that needs thorough examination, because we cannot be running a democracy that a minister could just sidestep the laws and do as they please, and the permanent secretary don't have the courage to remind the minister, no, you're in breach of A, B, and C, and it should, maybe we can look at something else, or maybe we have to go back to Parliament immediately.
Yeah, but we have a permanent secretary who can boast boldly and loudly that I know how to move things around.
That was only done when UNC was there, or the partnership was there. You have to make sure you did everything by the law. The permanent secretaries and they will tell you, hey, minister, you cannot do this. You cannot do that.
You know what permanent secretaries are telling some of the junior ministers right now, who are entitled to 4 or 5 staff members who they can bring in without going through the formal processes.
Yep.
They're telling those people you have to go through the hiring process.
All right.
No, well, if I'm a minister and I find out that I'm ill-advised, I don't want that permanent secretary around me.
Yeah, but you have a pack of 52 cards. You can only shuffle. You can't. What else are you gonna do? You can shuffle them around.
The last time I said, when you want to get rid of somebody, you send them on long leave, education or something. But it has to be done. It has to be done.
We had 2 choices: either get rid of them, replace them as CEOs, or you run a parallel system. As you'll find yourself in year 2, you're still not able to implement your projects. So you have year 3 and year 4, and that's it. Year 5, nothing again. So the manifesto, the manifestos, which is not the manifesto, you only have 2 years to implement your project.
Yeah.
You'll be lucky if you get through with 25% of that manifesto. So what happens after 5 years now? Oh, look, you guys said you will do this, you will do that, we'll do X, Y, and Z, and look, only 1/4 of your promises are met. This is how it happens.
Yeah, that's the reality.
That's the reality of it. So unless you either change the law somewhere along the line and replace these suckers with your own people, with people who can implement things, or you run a parallel system, and you don't need much people to run a parallel system. It's just strategic positions. And if you can, each minister can employ 5 persons, and you have 30 or how many ministers, and you multiply that by 5, you can find core teams for a number of scenarios. For example, you can have a strong implementation team. You could have a data and an AI team. You could have a social team. You could have an economic team. Let that be your advisors. Let them be your advisors. Just bypass and leave the public servants where they are, and you have good grounds to terminate a lot of them for breaching the Public Service Act for the past 10 years.
Well, you will remember, those of you who were around at the beginning of the last term, you remember the Prime Minister had set up a team under Dr. Terence Farrell called the Economic Advisory Board or something like that, and put a number of technical people there to simply do exactly what you are asking. Right? Now that didn't work at all because it fizzled out into nothing. But you have that option.
But Arjun, I think that is different to what Sumant is suggesting.
Yes, correct.
Because they didn't have a official role within the government or within the administration. They were just people of supposedly different expertise put together to come up with a plan, like a manifesto. I don't know.
But you can also use them. You can also use them. I'm not sure where the law is on that, but you can use them in an implementation role as well.
Correct.
There's nothing.
That's what I'm saying.
Right. So there's nothing.
Number of roles, because you have, let's say, the amount of ministries times 5. If you're allowed to have 5 employees per minister.
Exactly. exactly.
And you have core teams, not one team. You have core teams to advise them. Now, remember, these are not these are your supporters, eh? These are your people.
Yeah, trusted people who will carry out your policies, your mandate.
Your
Your mandate.
who knows the vision, who's seen the manifesto, who knows what can be done and how to break the bottleneck, how to get over the pain points, and so on. So these are your technocrats. Do not rely on these public service technocrats. They're going to lead you down the wrong path to ensure that you get stick down the road. And the PS will approve these things because they know the trap is already set.
Yeah. And there's no confidentiality either. I mean, everything that you're trying to do will get out into the hands of the opposition.
And that is why they say, even though we lost the government, we are still in power. This is the reason why they say these things. They know what it is. I tell you, the ministry I work with, it was I identified of the 36 directors. I was one of them. It was identified that there were 22 PNM party groups there. They had a PNM party, and they were making decisions for UNC. Sorry, for partnership government. So what do you expect?
Yeah.
And this is the same thing repeating itself. And the same thing
but you know,
in 1986 as well, when they won the election. The same thing happens. So you can see a trend with the data, what they're doing.
But I mean, we have to find creative ways to get around the obstacles that we face. And let's not waste time identifying the obstacles. We know the reality of what is happening in Trinidad. We know it has happened in the past. It's going to happen again in this 5 years. What we have to do is spend our time finding creative ways of doing it. And some of these suggestions coming out here is a good start. But we have to find a way around it. Or as you said, we're going to wake up 4 years from now with 20%, 25% of the manifesto implemented. And that's not going to be good for anybody. So I think we have to find ways of doing it. And I think, just as I came into the discussion tonight, we were talking about changing some of the laws. And if it requires changing the law, we have to do that. Yeah, we have to do it.
Right away.
And if I may go back to this whole central banking issue, and I don't know what was covered before I came on this evening, but to me, I just cannot understand how something as critical as the usage of foreign exchange for an economy like ours, right? Small, open economy where your foreign exchange reserves, your stock of foreign exchange reserves has an impact on so many things. And we're not just talking about everyday life and so on. We're talking about government policy, all right? You are going, a state institution, this is not a foreign entity. This is not a semi-private organization or whatever. This is a state organization that makes its money and so on from managing the people's money. And you could tell the government of the day, the government which is responsible for making and administering laws and policies for the benefit of the country, which supported them and voted them into office in an overwhelming fashion. You could tell that government, no, I am not going to provide information to you which will help you to formulate and to structure your policies in a way which you see fit. It just doesn't make sense to me. Now, you have a budget review, the 6-month budget review coming up shortly. They've already set the date to go to Parliament.
Yeah, 16th.
What are they going to be telling us? Not having a critical piece of information as to how the allocation of foreign exchange is happening. Which sectors are being starved? Which sectors are enjoying a free flow regardless of the shortage? And so on and so forth. And you're going to do a budget review for the last 6 months without a critical piece of information.
That's why I'm asking the question, where are they getting the information and who is furnishing that information? They could be just setting them up. And the thing
Because
is,
listen, the business class in Trinidad is a powerful lobby group, very powerful.
very,
And
very.
we know exactly how they manipulate the system and they manipulate the politics of the last 10 years to get their way and to get what they want. I mean, what the former governor, Jawala Rambaran, was doing was basically trying to level the playing field, right? And he started off by increasing the number of players and so on in that shared arrangement, right? Whenever the central bank has to make an allocation in the foreign exchange market, it used to give the bulk of it, and Mr. Sriram would know of this. The bulk of it went to one institution, one commercial bank, got the lion's share. And that could never be right. That could never have been fair. And what he was trying to do was to level the playing field and increase the number of players in the market so that the access to foreign exchange then became wide and spread among a wider group of the national community. That did not make sense to the last administration. So they went right back to status quo so that the rich continued to get richer. And that, to me, you know, a government that came in on a mandate that this government came in under, and recognizing that 50,000 people lost their jobs, many of them in the SME sector, and we know how decimated that sector has been, particularly since the 2020 COVID and the lockdown. You want to revive that sector, and you want to revive it mainly because it employs a significant amount of people. But you must have the information to know where the foreign exchange is going and how you can reallocate and formulate government policy in such a way that you can increase the supply to those to that particular sector if you deem that sector to be a priority sector. And that is
Arjun,
why the information is so critical. You can't be formulating government policy in a vacuum.
yeah, Arjun, just before you came in, we suggested that, for example, the Ministry of Finance, they have under them the Custom and Excise Department, so they can
Right.
probably get a great deal of information as to who is importing what is the value of those items, so we can get an idea of the use of foreign exchange and what is being imported with it. Now that may not give us 100% of the data we require, but we can always plug in or make some assumptions with regards to other areas like how much is being used for students abroad and so on, right? So, you know, I think the Ministry of Finance should not be stymied by the central bank governor, because there are other ways to get the information. Because you're correct, if they don't have that information, how are they going to make policy decisions? So go
And
and
that,
get it by any means. And in the meantime, you set your lawyers to see whether the central bank governor is standing on firm ground, because there's another act to look at, the Foreign Exchange Act, I believe. I don't know the exact wording, but we can also look at that, you know, to see whether that his objection, the governor's objection, is on solid legal grounds. But in the meantime, go and collect the information. You're sitting on it. That
And
department falls
and
under
and,
Ministry of Finance.
and even if he's standing on solid ground, change the law. Change the law.
Change the law. Exactly. So you have a plan going forward.
that's
But
why I'm saying what I'm saying. That wasn't, in my opinion, I feel that is a policy directive by the PNM government to screw the distribution of foreign exchange to whoever, you know, their partners and
Of
finances will.
course. Of course. Of
yeah,
That's
course.
a policy decision.
well, uh,
Has nothing to do with fairness, Arjuna, you know, what we are saying. They killed the SME section once and for all and created that monopoly now, because these guys will take over the roles of the SME in a big way. So you have no choice but to go back now. And why would you were supporting your local guy here and there with 2 and 3 and 5 employees? Now we have no choice but to face the big guy now, the monopolist.
Yeah.
There's a big systemic problem with regards to auto financing, and those of us who have lived through the 1980s,
Yes.
I can't tell how young Gary is, but Sumanta, you would know, I would know. I mean, I used to manage the accounts at the bank. In 1982, auto sales and trucks and units then were 23,000, in 1982.
Mhm.
When the recession hit in 1983, that fell below 5,000.
And
Fell
they left
below
their
5.
keys in the car and tell the bank to take it up by their home.
Exactly, and people are giving back the keys on their houses to the
Correct.
banks.
The mortgages and so on. Yeah, who
Yes,
had mortgages in
right.
in their homes, tell the bank to come and collect it, take the keys, and they split.
So come now, 20, my goodness, 40, almost 40 years after, what has changed? We are in a higher risk position now. Higher risk, I'll tell you why.
Mhm.
But what has changed was the amount of money still floating around as loans. And the banks are hiding their bad debt. They're hiding it. And right now, compared to the 1980s, they are financing 100%. So soon as the car rolls off the showroom, the banks are financing 110%, 120%. And if it's an EV, it's probably 150% they're financing. So sooner, I believe very soon, you're going to find a lot of uh, uh, these mortgages and so on and car loans being called in
A
and
little bubble is
repossession.
going to come, a little bubble wave is going to come up.
It is in my view a very big bubble. So when that happens now, this whole game about financing for cars and bringing in stocks of cars and financing it through the banks is a racket that has been going on, and the bubble is going to burst. And when that bursts, what happens to everything? Everything falls apart, and at the end of the day, we would have wasted billions in foreign exchange instead of putting it into productive equipment and factories and so on to manufacture things locally. So we are running a very high risk form of government that needs to change immediately. And I think this is where a strong government will come in and make those changes with regards to lending. For example, I'm giving you just one example. Central bank could say we're insisting on prudential lending and equity in a car must be at least 20%. What is wrong with saying that? The other big difference between in the 80s and now is that you are getting car loans up to 10 years, before 3 years, and that was it.
Mhm.
So the system has changed to the detriment, in other words, to the detriment of prudential lending, and it's going to blow up in our faces. It's going to
Yes,
blow
a
up.
lot of bad that's circulating, only waiting for it to be exhaled.
That's
And you
correct,
want
Kumar.
you want to see a greater extent to the bubble that you speak about. The financial
Then-
institution is insuring that same vehicle with a subsidiary insurance company.
Yes, I know. It's
So
all
it's all within the same group.
backward and forward training. It's economics to tell you that they are all linked up. So when the bubble bursts, it really bursts on them. You
But
know.
then we have to ask the question: what is the role of the regulators? And I think government should be aware of these risks that we have, just as we had this risk with Clico. And
Yes,
that Clico risk, I have studied it, and it was a product that was approved by the central bank, wrongfully approved,
but that was
wrongfully
glaring.
approved,
That was glaring. You know, that was glaring.
glaring.
Any analyst who was there at that time will tell you that these signs are already there. What is the state doing to rein this thing in? And they did nothing.
Here the EFPAs, that's a deposit. Why was that allowed? And that is the time when Clico was raking in money. They didn't know what to do with it. They bought out FX and invested in Miami and all over the place.
Big time
They were,
enforcers loaded it up the street here, big high
All
rises and so on. I'm
they were
sorry I
buying
didn't buy
uh,
one for myself.
distilleries all over Europe as well.
so it's taxpayers. It fell on the taxpayers' head. fell on the taxpayer, and they were giving themselves massive bonuses. How this woman could put a check for $5 million in a drawer, that means it means little for her, because her earnings must have been $50 million for the year. What is 5 million? You know, and we had all these directors there just reaping in the rewards, not monitoring risk. And at the end, the taxpayers and we, the citizens, have to pay for it. That's not right.
We hold the
It's
brand
not
up.
right. And thanks to central bank, we have to thank central bank for that foolishness.
Yep. Many
Well,
$6 million men came out of that.
my understanding is the bank supervisors, the guys who go out to the institutions, were doing their jobs diligently, but the reports never made it to the top. It was stymied. It was
Well,
pushed aside.
well, close up the central bank and open a unit, a separate unit. I'll head that unit.
When you
I'll
look
head
at
that unit.
who the directors were, especially of you look at Clico Investment Bank, for example, and all the directors and the people who were involved in that institution, and
Yes.
the way in which they raped that company, you will
They did.
understand why. The politics of it, they were in the bosom of the ruling party at the time.
And Harinarayan, he came from the bosom of Clico, and then he started HCU, and it's the same business model that he had.
Yes,
Same business
smaller
model.
version of the ACU. That's a smaller
It's
version.
amazing. It's
Continue the
amazing.
rape. Yeah.
Yeah, that's Top Cat and Choo. That's what it was. Amazing. I mean, we can do.
Oh, boy.
You see, the question is, have we learned any lessons, you know?
Correct.
And if we have learned any lessons, have we put things in place to stop it? Have we put things in place to stop it? I don't think so. We don't know how many companies are still doing the EFPAs. EFPAs. We don't know.
I'm wondering, guys, are you hearing me by any chance?
Yes, I can.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, sorry. Yeah, I mean, I remember Sumant in the earlier talks that we had. Remember, we had said that that coming out of all that we were saying, that you have all these ministries, and in each one of these ministries, they're going to be outing fires on a daily and weekly basis. Every time cabinet meets, it's almost as it's going to be outing the fires that will come up. Right? Remember, we said that. Yeah.
Yes,
Mhm.
for more than
And-
not a
and-
weekly,
yeah.
month, 6 months,
Right.
yearly too.
Right. We said that they were going to get less time because the first year is they're going to start, unwinding, and then in the last year they're going to start closing up again, so that we will just have about 3 years out of the 5. Right. We
Correct.
said that. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
We also said that we needed to have an external, entity, which will use something within the government system, and we thought that we could have an advisory team, a think tank, as it were,
Mhm.
that would advise and assist through a ministry. And we thought public administration and AI would be a good one, because they would have been able to administrate government, right? By creating
Yes.
where the think tank creates a business process, right? Whereby we identify during the analysis phase and before they reach the gap analysis, because right now they're just assessing. We said that maybe what we can do is to identify the key performance indicators in each ministry. All right. In finance, we're looking at so many things. We look at foreign exchange, etc. So each ministry has some key indicators. My question, if you guys could help me, tell me something. The UNC party itself, does it have in the institutional framework, do we have a strategic division or a planning division in terms of policy that advises the ministers? Who I'm talking about, the UNC party now, because of a lot of the NATEX members are now ministers, which I never really agreed upon. But the thing is that is there something that exists within the UNC that we can, as external advisors, both foreign and local, come together and say, guys, we want to meet with you, and we want to create an advisory team that looks at the forest from outside, and we will assist via the public administration ministry. Remember, Sumad, remember we sent that document? We sent that document, didn't we? Yeah.
This is what it is.
Yeah, we sent that
Exactly.
document early. We sent it early. We sent it to say that, look, we would be happy to engage as an advisor. Of course, we can get what hurt me a couple of days ago, and I had to make a post about it, is that apparently the PNM people thinks that they have the best technocrats and intelligent people in the country, so they can stay on boards. And even the minister Amory Brown the ex-minister of Foreign Affairs Amory Brown suggesting to
Really?
our sobers that he would want to come in and assist. It's almost like they're saying that UNC doesn't have the people to do these things, so therefore we will stay on the boards and we will wait and we will help. Which I think is an insult to any of us, some of us,
Absolutely.
none of us.
Absolutely.
It's an
Yes.
insult, right? I sit home and I listen to this garbage and I say it's an insult. But the problem is, and we identified this long ago, and most of you guys know, having worked in the ministry, having worked with ministers, having worked with permanent secretaries in the switchovers, remember?
Yes, yes.
And my take on this is, maybe what we can do is to meet with the UNC, find out if there's a strategic team there. And if there isn't, maybe we should convince the Honorable Prime Minister to set up a team within the UNC itself, right, as an advisory body, right, to the party itself advises the government arm of the party, if you want to call it that. Although there will be some duplications, which we hope there should be not. In other words, and if you're serving as a minister or parliamentary secretary, even if you have a post in the UNC, you should now give that up or say, look, let us get somebody else. You can't be doing two. You can't be assessing yourself or advising yourself. So I'm hoping that maybe
your
that
answer to
yeah.
that, Doc, is no. They don't
Right.
have that strategic team.
Right. So
only
therefore,
for electioneering purposes.
right.
But what I suggested to them,
Yeah.
you guys need to start with having a database of the.
Right.
Wait a minute. Don't we have an advisory strategic team right here?
Yeah, but apparently they're not listening, Gary.
Well,
Because all these things,
we have done a few things. We have done a few things that were sent directly, right? So
yes,
keep on, and it flowing that communication. So all the recommendation, do as I said before. You'll be surprised.
Coming out. Let me leave it, Dr. Ramrup. Yes, there is a strategic team only for electioneering purposes.
Right.
But
my suggestion then.
Strategic team for economic solutions,
right,
or advisory solutions, or implementing solutions.
Yeah.
You should be able to draw on your database of skilled personnel within your organization.
Yeah.
That is what they don't have. And I've been talking to that for years.
I think that they should try, hopefully with maybe my neighbor's help, is that we could probably see if we could have this advisory team as a think tank, so to speak, and try to see. I know Gary's saying that we're sending, but I'm not sure if it's maybe because they're so busy that nobody's answering us or even responding.
No, listen to me. The Prime Minister always said, right, that she looks at everything and she can't respond to everything. I mean, it's humanly not possible, right? Because I understand that she took government. She is engaging in more than she really should have. I mean, have to deal with. They came in the rainy season here, where the flooding issue, they had to jump on it right away. So and then the ministers are functioning, dealing with their constituency issues, and also in the ministerial functions. So there's a lot going on, and this I take into consideration. But I know, listen, I've encouraged the communication, and I'll also give the directive on how we should flow with that. And our team should do in a certain way I've explained before, right? So I would consider, I think we have a very highly qualified advisory team right here, that is completely rounded.
And you can see that exactly what happened in 86, happened in 95, happened in 2010, and it's happening now. So 4 consecutive changes of government. You can see a pattern. If you look at the data, you'll see the identical patterns going on. That means PNM have their strategy. you know, their blueprint, I should say.
Yeah, and you
You
could
could
see it.
see.
You could see it. They
You could
start.
see it.
I mean, they have already started counteracting almost everything that we have done in,
Yes.
especially in social media, TikTok,
Mhm.
X, everything. And we, on the other hand, our UNC party, right, should have a team of young people, right, who can be advised by the think tank or the advisory team, right,
Correct.
in such a way, in a strategic way, to begin counteracting the PNM's media. They're already there, so we need to kind of start as soon as possible. Yeah, the ministers are doing it and some people are doing it, but it's not how PNM is starting. They actually attacking everything, and they're bombarding the social media with it already.
And
Well,
that's
So
going to
I have
slow
some
you
serious
down.
concern about our young people because in all the requests that was made, it seems that these young people feel they have a degree and they want big money to make 1 inch of our work. So they don't get no volunteerism with them, and I have a degree. So they were doing nothing for free, and a lot of I listen to me. I'm still wondering, what it would take to get these young people engaged. I mean,
what?
we
Yes,
need some
but
leadership
Gary,
programs.
Gary, let me make a suggestion with respect to that. If you have a think tank of your followers and they are qualified, you have to know that whenever this job comes, it's yours. They will have that feeling at least that they will be getting the job, so to speak. So
Compensated.
yeah,
I
it will
mean,
be a flow. It will be a flow, a
what
natural
we
flow.
need. Listen to me. We are outside the country. Most of us are outside the country here. But the thing about it is, somebody on the ground there has to grab the idea. I made this suggestion for many times for many years, right? And
And
even
when you have
recently, leading up to the election, and we have a UTAM president there that told me, yeah, and won't answer my call, right?
that's
After
right.
I thought we had an understanding. And this is what I found with a lot of young people, and even a lot of people in Trinidad. They tell you yeah, and yeah doesn't mean yeah. Yeah is really maybe I might think about it. That is Trinidadian number one. For me, yeah is yeah. And when I say I'm doing something, I'm doing something. And if I can't do it, I'll reach back and say, hey, you know what, something can't, I can't do that. But we don't do these things. We say yeah, and I mean it's up to you to catch, and this is how they operate.
But Gary, you have to understand that most of these ministers are new ministers. They're in the
But
same
I'm not even
trend.
getting to the ministers. I'm talking about in the party politics within the system
I
itself.
know, but the trend continues the same with the new
Yes, but I mean,
ministers.
I would encourage our team here to be forceful in its communication with foreign those recommendations. As we say it, send it directly, and work that way.
Because the
I'll tell you
problem,
something. When I started helping people that was trying to outside the country, they told me that if I don't go in front of the embassy and make a protest, I won't get no way. And talking on social media and talking on chat room won't get no way. At the end of the day, I end up helping about 600 people around the world get it home.
that was very
So what I'm
commendable.
saying is keep on firing those recommendations, and don't back down. Keep on firing it.
What
And we
what
have
I'm
an
what I'm
avenue
really
here
saying
too.
what I'm really saying is that it's one thing to recommend, but the conversation that I came into is a very important conversation, and it's a conversation that many of us who are in business or who actually lecture to leadership students or whatever, we have to always have a data driven approach to recommendations. It's one thing to say, well, I would suggest this as an advisory team, but in the absence of data, that recommendation cannot be supported by citations, by studies, by examples and whatever in similar populations, etc. So yes, we can recommend, but what I'm suggesting to do so, it must come under some type of organizational structure. My suggestion is that we engage the UNC party itself. We get the boss to say, well, look, we have an advisory team that shall provide advice on behalf of the UNC party, right? And in that advisory team, we would suggest that through the public administration ministry, or maybe the Ministry of Planning or both, that certain data sets, right, can be sent, of course, all things being equal, to this advisory team to begin making some overall overarching suggestions, right? Because they are going to be looking from the outside while we out the fires inside, and our weekly cabinet meetings will continue to do so, because you will sit down for the whole cabinet and it'll just out in fires. But this team, which will be the UNC think tank, so to speak, will get some data from the government itself via a system, right, that will allow this UNC think tank to advise government, right, generally speaking, on all the key performance indicators of all the ministries. I
And
mean,
objectively,
yeah,
that's a critic.
yeah.
Critically,
I mean, that is what I feel would be something that, we talked about. I know Mr. Harry Paul was talking about legislation, but indeed, legislation will come from that, because I feel that if this organizational structure, right, is put in place, right, and we have key roles and responsibilities, key deliverables that we would like to give, and we will also have to get it back by data, all right. And what I'm suggesting is that, this is probably, right, a good way to do it, and avoid having for us as a government, as a UNC people, to get into the same khaki pants in 2025, where we end up doing so much out in fires throughout the 5 years, with PNM still running the government because of the bureaucracy and because of the people that they have inside there, who will block us every single way. And we'll look at any sort of weaknesses that we have, demonstrate, whether it's a ministerial problem, or somebody make a mistake, somebody, do something and fire somebody in a ministry, although the PNM could do it without fear. If the UNC minister or the UNC permanent secretary fires somebody, the whole country knows about it. You see? So we're going to get it. And we started getting it already. They already set up a WhatsApp for all people who are fired, right, or terminated, to call them and tell them. You understand?
So
So
that is forward thinking.
yeah.
That is good strategizing. That means they know the weaknesses of the UNC and how to getting around that and circumventing and leapfrogging the UNC.
So maybe that, Gary, maybe one of the advice that we can give as an advisory team. Of course, we can obviously have more people coming in. I mean, this is just us, and I'm sure there are other people who have capabilities, competencies that are IUNC people and will be able
The
to
door
help
is
us.
wide open on this
Yeah.
platform here.
Let us, Gary,
So
let
go
us
ahead.
ask the boss to say, well, look, guys, we have a team that will work through the UNC party itself. You know what I mean? We are the UNC, but we don't have a, I mean, we can send the recommendations, but we have to be very careful, because we can talk. Some of us live abroad. We don't have all the data, and sometimes that might compromise our decision making. I mean, one minister already told me, he said, Doc, listen to me. I know you mean well, but we are in the ministry, right? We are seeing what is happening. We are talking to the technocrats. So with all due respect, yeah, your ideas are good, but we are here. We are walking the talk. So we have to be very careful with your recommendations, because if you're not inside and you don't know what you are saying because you don't have the data at your hand, you might be wrong. You know what I mean? And I said, fair enough, of course. So I think that I think
You
we have
have
to
the
be careful.
experience, so I wouldn't say
Yeah.
you don't have, you have some previous experience, and I don't think it changed that much of
Yeah. But
what is
But
experienced there.
yeah, but now you see decision making is a core requirement of data.
Well,
And you have
some
to have that.
people may feel that they don't have to listen to us because they are
A
the
lot of,
actual.
not so, I think a lot of them feel so.
Right.
Not some.
So
A lot of them feel that.
this is why I suggest that we go through the channel to the boss lady, because she's more receptive of listening to us, and let her make the directive, because typically the egos will fly high, and we won't get anywhere, and it could be 25 years. You know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
would say continue the communication in the way I suggest. And I know. Listen, me and these people don't have a relationship like how I would have, from the top, right? So I would suggest that we continue the communication. Let the prime minister make the decision. I know she has a lot on her plate, so we can't expect too much right now. I mean, she's dealing with like a lot more than she really need to be dealing with.
Sure.
So she's working very hard. Everybody's working very hard. So the support, it has to come from us. A lot of people are fighting for position. As you know, it will take place in the government. Everybody want a position. Everybody want a contract. This how
Yeah.
you know how the thing this go, right? This one want that, and that one want. Everybody want. And before we could give, we have to fix certain things, right? And I mean, a lot us here understand that, and a lot of people are not very understanding because they expect that, like I say, from the next day on, that the boss only could strike a magic one and everybody get taken care of at the same time, and that can't happen. We have to build out this thing now, and I would encourage our team to stay engaged and communicate with her directly.
If you get a good core, nice data set as a
And
data
Dr. Ramrup, you closer than
analyst,
we.
Yeah, I can
no,
actually shout. You hear me?
no,
Uh,
once you get a nice data set, I myself, as a data analyst, you could get so many solutions and alternative solutions to it. Once you tie back that into your deliverables, which is the manifesto, the 11
Well, so
growth
when just
goals.
one second. I asked you to create a module, right? You going down
I
another
already,
wire.
I did that and I sent it there, my man.
Yeah, but what I'm
Why
saying to you
you
now,
not-
you're gonna physically get there, and sometimes dealing with long distance, you don't get the kind of response that when you
response.
actually.
I
Yeah,
realize
but some people are old fashioned. They're not into the technological way of things. Like how I could sit here and play with my phone and have 600 people. They're not like that.
right, but the world is driven by data now. You don't make
Yeah,
no
but
hush
some
hush.
people are not in that standard. So you will have to physically get there.
I had to go down personally to Trinidad, you telling me?
We have to sponsor you as an ambassador.
Yeah, that's a tough call, but we see.
So
No, but
I mean,
you
but
know
we
all the
have
reality.
Arjun here, we have Arjun here, we have Ved, and we have Dr. Ramrup, right? So the three people out of the five here is actually
So,
on the ground.
so that's
So
good. You need a mix, you know.
right. So I mean I made certain recommendations several times, and and we will discuss more about these things off the air. But what I'm saying to you is we have to remain engaged. Don't lose hope because the boss lady is paying attention to what we say, and the team on the ground is taking a lot of the suggestion. Even they don't say yes or no, but they have taken a lot of the suggestion, and they have done it because I've seen them done it already, and this is what we want. We want the job done, and as time go by, you will see things formulate. I mean, it's like I said, there's 5 months, right? But there are some things we need to put in place right away. We understand that, but we don't know what's taking place internally. So until we get more information, and listen, intelligence and testicular fortitude is two different things to get the job done. You might have the intelligence, but you may not have the testicular fortitude to stand up on what you're up against. And so that's one thing too. You might be the brightest lawyer, but you won't have the testicular fortitude to put up the fight, and then you may want to put up the fight and you don't have the backup. So because you know how we people is, they might make big talk and run and leave you to fight. So gentlemen, I do say we keep at it. We have a platform here. We're going live and direct, and we do get a lot of views. Some of these shows are like 1,700. It's picking up. We are down to over 2,000 subscribers. So we are getting heard.
Yeah, but I hope.
Yeah, we have to keep the fight of it. We have to keep up. We can't. We have to remain engaged. Now, we're seeing here where the central bank is saying that the Auditor General did not proceed with auditing. You see that? So they're trying to put the blame on the Auditor General here.
But didn't the governor put out a statement saying that he did not use them for the audit? Apparently,
Yes, I saw that.
he changed the auditor. So I didn't know that the central bank had the power to to actually decide who will audit them. I didn't know that. So those two statements are contradictory. If he said he changed the auditor, and then he's saying that she refused to audit, I'm not sure which to believe now.
You guys seen the screen, right?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay. These are the articles from the paper, right?
yeah.
And we could pick up on the article, probably another day. But this is what they're saying. So they want to play game with us, and they're being bold-faced in it because they feel it's PNM country as usual. It's the Costa Nostra mafia cartel country, and they can rule, and they have their tentacles locked into certain place, and we know they intend to give us a fight, and we have to be persistent, and try to give the support as much as we can be doing here, and in private too. I mean, you gentlemen, like I said, Arjun and Veed and Dr. Ramwitz on the ground. So, gentlemen, I encourage you to be bold, and remain engaged. It may look like we're getting ignored, and I guess we have to be like a woodpecker. you keep picking away.
No,
You know?
it's not of love for country, Gary.
No, I'm just saying, but I'm saying you have to be like
us-
a woodpecker, picking at it, because until you get through.
Because if there wasn't a change of government recently, God help us, where the country would have been. And we all have families and so on back home. So, we are willing, at least myself is willing to go and even work for them for free. If that is the case, that can help them in any way. But the responses you're getting, I think, is very muted or very slight. That's understandable because Doc says they're out in fires, but in my view, they'll be out in fires for a long while. And in addition to that, explaining and answering the queries coming from the PNM at that time, they're not PNM very sly, they were very sharp with their social media and so on. They keep you engaged. And when you engage, you don't have the time to do your work which you really set out to do. And if you don't have backup, like what we suggested, I don't know if you guys recall, that the ministers should never have their private day office on Tuesdays, but have an appointed person to work alongside the minister. Let the minister deal with legislative matters and parliament and so on, and let this guy who works with the minister be appointed as maybe whatever the role they want to give him, but let him sit in the office and do the minister's work in the constituencies. That is not followed. Now you see every minister is on Tuesdays, they have to be manning their constituency offices. They are already so overburdened. Then they have to be answering the question. Then they have to be preparing for parliament, the debating and so on. What's going to happen? They don't want to hear nothing from nobody.
Definitely requires a change in the way we do things, and we've been talking about that for years, and nothing has changed. And just to go back to the previous discussion on this, one of the things you can criticize the UNC on is the fact that once they get into government, the focus is on government, and the focus from the party goes into the background.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I mean, that's basically what I'm trying to.
Yeah,
the party, and that's where you have the executive into government position now, so you cannot manage all of that. You need that separated.
Physically impossible.
Yeah, so the party comes alive and all the arms of the party comes alive to fight an election. But once that election is won, everything goes to sleep after that. So, it's something that really has to be revisited, because you're not going to be able to put your best effort out if that's how we operate. And now the scenario that you're describing there, the ministers are going to be overwhelmed. And when they are, then definitely, things will suffer. Every one of the 26, I believe, is attached to some ministry somewhere, either as a minister, junior minister, or a parliamentary secretary.
All right.
I mean, it's tough enough just to run your constituency alone. Now we have a ministerial position, and for example, like how Sean is Minister of Foreign Affairs, he has to travel. You know, he
Yeah.
has to move around. And I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
So
so
I think this is what like what Sumant was talking about, a parallel system, and I'm hoping that could be the answer. If it is recognized as, I mean, temporarily, even if it is to wait until the guys come back into to take off their hats and go back into election again, but at least under the umbrella of the party, because if we are all members of a party, we can be a group or a team of persons who within that party, right, are saying to you now, we are advising you on behalf of the UNC. And therefore, hopefully, if we actually look at that as not just the advice, but building the structure within the party, so that hopefully as the party goes forward, right, we'll always have that strategic think tank that doesn't only deal with elections. Election is just one part of the pie, so to speak. But the bigger part of the pie is strengthening the institutional framework of the party, strengthening the party as an institution itself. So whilst we go forward, we not just build the party, but we assist governance, we assist government, and at the same time, we set the stage for 2025, 2030, you see, which the other people are not going to be doing until they get into an election mode. So that is, to me, the concept note that should be sent now, because that is what I think is needed now. And once we get some degree of agreement from the government, from the party itself, I think it makes what we are doing more relevant and more satisfying than if we are just sending recommendations in the wind, and then because of their busy schedules, we're not positive whether that would be adopted or whether it will be considered, or we have no idea at all whether it's be considered. One question I want to ask you guys: in the current government, have you identified any public information or communication role? Any one of the ministries, do they have that? Like
There,
we had
well,
Ministry of Information
there's no
once.
Ministry of Public Administration as there was previously. There's none
You,
this time around.
you know
So
what
I'm
I'm
not
talking about?
sure
Public
where.
information. Like if you have like a statement to make, it's coming out of the office of the Prime Minister, right? Yes.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
Right.
and Barry's talking. But what I'm saying is, there a Ministry of Information or any one of the ministries that they are there that has that responsibility? Have you all seen that?
wouldn't that be fall under Dominic Smith?
I'm not sure. I mean, you know
Yeah,
what I'm talking
I
about.
don't think any Ministry of Information per se has been identified. So
Hmm.
I think it will be coming mainly from the office of the Prime Minister.
You see,
No,
one of the
that
things,
is, yeah. Go ahead.
I'm sure many of you all have been in business, right? And you could be the best scientist, you could be the best of anybody, anything. And if you can't communicate that effectively in a scientific and strategic way, I mean, there are universities that offer courses on communication, right? Both informal and formal. You know what I mean? And it's just, I'm finding it very strange that the government doesn't have a Ministry of Communication that looks at what they need to communicate, right, overall, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
I'm not sure if it is there and I missed it, but maybe you
But Doc,
guys saw it.
yeah, Doc, in every ministry there's a communications department
Right.
who serves the minister only, right? That
Right.
in that ministry.
Yes.
Now I get what you're saying, and again I spoke to this thing about that. Who is that information and communication ministry, which you're suggesting we should have, is the one who will be doing all our PR and everything else going
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah.
That was the ministry that will be informing the public. Don't wait till the fourth and fifth year to start doing that.
Yeah.
You
No,
have to start at this point in time to communicate the achievements and the issues that are being faced, and be hitting that on the face of the nation all the time.
Yeah, it's just, if, as I said, you could be all the scientists in the world, and if you can't
Correct.
communicate what you know in your head, it doesn't make sense. You know that. Communication is a very important role.
Communication is the thing, and you got to get it out there. And you
I
have
just asked the question because I'm
no,
not
that's
sure if there
right.
is.
That is the correct question.
So
Well,
maybe that should be one of That's
And I
one
Gentlemen,
think
of our advice.
you're on the
the short
ground.
answer to that, the short answer to that question is that no particular ministry has been
Right.
identified.
I thought so. I thought so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to be sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, so well, like I said, do the best you guys can know that for your physically there. I mean, I am making a lot of noise from on this end. I mean, we have this platform, but I think I just think there's a workload that has to move aside. I would say give it within the year, at least a year. You know, let the government at least they'll take 6 months to really pull themselves together, and maybe another 6 months to try to get things up and running. But the parties part of things I would say would take, you know, I'd give it a year. But the suggestion on how the government operates and things that we see, you know, that needs to be done. Don't, like I say, if you think of something, you see something that necessary to be say something. Don't hesitate. Don't hesitate. The lines
Yeah.
of communication is open. Make a recommendation. Whether they say yes or no, send it anyway. So you have proof that you made that recommendation. That's how I do it in my business.
Yeah. Gary, may I suggest? I don't think we have 6 months. I'll tell you why. We have to get some bread and butter issues immediately attended to. And I keep
on, the,
saying that,
on the economic side, yeah.
yeah, there are two important issues: the crime and the FX, right? Two
Yeah, no,
important.
no, I'm talking about party issues. I ain't talking about that economic thing. So the things you recommending, yes, we have to hit the
Yeah,
ground
this
and
can be
approach it
done
right away.
immediately.
Yeah,
Immediately.
that I'm talking about is that's fine. I'm talking about the political party issues. You know,
Okay. All
Ga-
right.
Gary,
we have to give the
but Gary,
government. Go ahead.
Gary, one of the things, and if any recommendations going through at any level to deal with that issue of the MP serving as minister and as MP for his constituency. The thing to do is
And then
if you're going to put
being on the executive of the party too, the next thing too.
right, but if you're gonna get somebody to do his meetings, his usually there's one day for the week when they meet with constituents. If you're gonna get somebody to do that on the behalf of the minister, you're talking about a paid position. Now,
Yes.
who is
Right,
going to pay the guy
right.
to do that?
But people elected a minister, an MP, and they want to see the MP. They don't want to see
Well,
somebody else.
well, exactly. But even if we start changing the culture, where you have somebody there taking the information and acting on the behalf of the minister, that has to become a paid position as the first thing. The
Yeah,
second thing is one of the suggestion is in our system of government. To me, the local government representative in each of the constituencies, and there would be several. For example, in Shogunas West, where I live, there would be several MPs, councillors who are part of the Shogunas West constituency. But we have to remember that these guys are not full-time employees either. So if you want them to come and spend an entire Tuesday or Wednesday or whichever day of the week at the MP's office, they'd have to take a day off from their work because that is not a full councillor is not a full-time job. So there are some issues that we have to work through. But I think it's one of the ways that we definitely have to go, and we have to find a proper recommendation to make where we can free the minister from having to burden himself with that, because preparing for parliament and for debates and all of that stuff is in itself a full-time job.
The full-time job, and I know that. And when I come that one day to the office on Tuesdays between 9 and 5, it takes you, and I've experienced this workflow with my particular rep. It takes, on average, your wait time is any time between 2.5 to 3 hours per person. You cannot see your representative within half an hour. Nowhere, never, never, never.
Yeah, and then the MP himself will spend up to 10, 12 hours in the office as well. You got to think
Correct.
about it too.
It's a difficult process, and then next day he has to go to Parliament to prepare his debates, and it's not a satisfying job for him at that point in time. It becomes overburdened.
But as a group, I think it's something we should put our minds to, because it is one of the recommendations I think that we have to make, and it's something that they have to attend to. We can't go through the next 5 years without solving that issue. Have to find a way around that.
that, all I'm saying is that we have to also understand what we're dealing with at this point. For but party issues, something like I said, make your recommendation, but it is not first priority at this point because we have to get the government up and running, dealing with the issues.
Yes, the economic issues and the
Yeah,
fraud.
we have people.
That has
Listen,
to, that has to be
right? They're expecting a 10% raise, so we have to sort out how we're doing that, right?
correct. And this,
We have
that's
hungry people. We have hungry people that lost their job, and they got mouths to feed. So the mass production of the food, saving the crops, so making sure that these things have to be high priority at this point. So we don't let the crops go to waste. So all these people hard work, and then the goods becomes more expensive and difficult, and all this chaos. So as much flooding as we can prevent is the best thing to do and get the agriculture going.
Yeah.
and that's what the purpose of your think tank. Your big broad-based think tank will be doing this for you. So let them make the decision at that point in time when you submit your recommendation.
But
I,
Gary,
I
time
say
is not on our hands. I tell you right now, I'm in a chat group with my counselor for my area, and most of the area that I live in on the eastern side of the highway, as we speak, would be under flood waters right now. These people in this chat group, and I mean, they are clamoring. All right. I mean, we know the government has only been in office 5 weeks or whatever, but people are not taking that. They've suffered for 10 years and they want instant action. Okay, they're not taking excuses anymore. The government isn't doing anything. They're saying we are the government. So the government is under pressure from people who want delivery and they want it now. These are bread and butter issues. People are the house inside of their house are flooded as we speak.
right.
And
So
they know that the local government representative is UNC and the parliamentarian is UNC. So they don't want any excuses.
right. So that's just it. These are the high priority issues right now.
Correct.
And this is where we need to focus our attention. We will get to the party politics down the road. I mean, but the addressing the issues is higher priority at this point,
Mhm.
and we have a nation to feed.
Yeah.
I mean, so this is what I want us to be focusing right now on. No, I am not saying that we neglecting the political party, how to say, things that has to be done, but we have to prioritize at this point, and we also have to understand that our government is dealing more problems than usual,
Definitely true.
Yeah. And
right?
and
Support from you guys, is very essential in your recommendation in watching the government back, making your recommendation. Don't hold back on saying anything, whether they say yes or no. Send it anywhere. I mean, I structured groups. One to deal with disaster, one to deal with the neighborhood security, one to deal with the political system. And then I have the international group also, right? So we I try to break it up so that disaster issue, flooding issue, keep it in that group, so that the message don't become overwhelming. And when they get a message from that group, they know it's something that means something.
Gary, look at this. One of the things as a trauma surgeon, since I came out of university in 1985, right, as a doctor, is that when you hear, a lot of you all might hear ABC, the airway, breathing, and circulation, you know, and they always say, you have to make sure and deal with the airway first, because if the airway is not intact, then your circulation is a waste of time, and breathing once your person is breathing, then they're alive, so you could then deal with the artery, which is the circulation. You know what I mean? So when we hear ABC as a young doctor, we'll say, oh, so when we go to the resuscitation, we deal with airway, so let's make sure the airway is good, and then after we check the breathing and then the circulation. And most of the times after, by the time we reach, get everything in order and ABC, the person dies, because we didn't learn until later as a trauma doctor in more and more mature courses that airway, breathing, and circulation is not something that is always written ABC. It has to be taken together. in that when you deal with the airway, you almost instantaneously have to deal with breathing and circulation, or you lost the whole person. So I do beg to differ respectfully and say that yes, we'll deal with the airway, which is the quick wins. We will deal with disaster, finance, crime, whatever, as advisors. If they hear us, fine. If they don't, and we take your advice, we send it, and we're doing that. But I think at the same time, right, time is of the essence, and I think that we can also make advices or advisory, comments that we should begin to probably have a meeting with the party itself, because the party should exist, and that we can begin a discussion, right, on how the party itself can be strengthened, and I think that that is something should be taken in tandem. So in any good business, and the human body works like that. As a doctor, if I just treat and let the liver deal with itself, or if I just let the arm deal with itself, and I don't treat the whole body as a whole, we'll lose the body. So it's not in my it's not in my physical. It's not what I've trained to do. When I approach a problem as a doctor, I have to approach the whole body. So yes, I hear what you're saying, but I do feel that whilst we're doing this, it's not beyond our capabilities to deal with the bigger issues, right, which is going to affect the party, and sorry, not just the party, but the government as we speak, and the more we get into it, and it's going to get worse. Because face it, in reality, what can you do for somebody whose home is already flooded? What can you do? What really can you do? And the question is rhetorical, because once the house is flooded, it's already done. So we have to get them out. We have to give them food, treat them, and we are good at that as a
Well,
country. We are
this is
good
the
at that.
recovery state now.
Yes. So we are good at that.
This
Yeah. So the point about it is we are good at that. Our social services come in, the Rotary Club come in, the government, they give them water. We are very good at that. What we're not good at, and it's not just us to blame, is that you have people dumping things in the rivers. The Minister of Works, right? The Minister of Work identified that as a big problem and makes it a national emergency, because it is. It's the people doing their own harm to their own people.
But
And
that
that's a
is not
cultural
something.
thing.
That's something you could change overnight, because we
Right. So
created that problem
that's
for a
a
long period of
that's
time.
a
But
cultural thing. It
so
also has a lot to do with policy.
immediate, the pickup. You have
Yeah.
to expand
No, the
the pickup.
pickup. Listen, the pickup is going to just alleviate the problem temporarily, because the culture is still there. You'll
Yeah,
still
no,
have
we can work at that,
schools
but
who go to.
you
You'll
can't
have
blame the
schools.
people and not provide
Right. So
pickup.
you have yes, and you'll have people who still going to Kora River, right, and plucking the chicken upriver, right, and they're still going to be doing that, and leaving all the garbage to flow down the river. You're still going to be doing that, and that's a culture that is not going to change right away. Although they
But
might put laws in place, it's not going to change.
you have to
Look
have.
at
You see,
yeah.
laws can enforce itself. You have in Cora
Right.
River
So
needs a park police, right? You need some like a
and
park police, park
and you
ranger to
and you're
enforce
talking
these things.
about and you're
Yeah.
talking about long-term policy. So what we are saying, that that's where the ABC comes in, right? Where the whole body is treated at the same time. So whilst we're doing E, right, we have to be doing B and C as well. That's just my humble opinion.
Yeah, if I may say a few words here. The budget is the 6 month review and so on is coming up,
June 16, right? Far as we know, it starts.
right?
Yeah.
So I think that will be um, a very important event, giving guidance to the government with regards to what resources are available and what are the things they can prioritize over the next 6 months and 12 months, right?
Exactly, because we have
So,
people to feed. We have mouths to feed.
right. So we are dealing with resource constraint, and within that constraint, we have to identify priorities. We have to divide those priorities into what can be done without money. And this is where I think we spoke before, Sumant, I think we discussed it before. What you can do without money is legislation. You can put that in very quickly.
redirect the funds.
we,
Redirect the funds how it's spending.
but that's the other thing.
That's
If
the
you,
culture we raised with the parents, right? They know how to redirect the funds and plant the garden and save money
that's
and do
correct.
this, right? So that's the
Right.
culture. So that is the norm for we,
But
right?
but
But
we
we have to
need,
bring it in the government.
right. But with regard to legislation now, that includes giving protection to local production. So there's a lot of things to be done without the actual expenditure of money in terms of investments and so on.
Mhm.
So I think the government has to be very clear with regards to these segments of things to be done and prioritize it. And whilst you might be planning some bigger investment, in the meantime, these what I would call low hanging fruits should come in probably every week. Something new to the citizens, that they are seeing things happening. They're seeing things happening. Of course, there'll be emergencies like flood and so on, but by and large, you could expect that. So that is not in the categories that I'm thinking about with regards to what are the things that can be done to enhance the benefit to citizens. And a simple thing, we can put legislation with regards to the banking sector, give 3% minimum on deposit. Simple things can be done.
But the
Very
banks definitely have to be dealt with, Mr. Siram. And this is what I want to have a few programs going forward, that, especially addressing the banking sector.
right. So no,
Now,
well, I will before the elections, I sent my recommendations to at the now Prime Minister with regards to what legislation they should put in place. I'll pull that out. I'll pull that out, and we'll discuss it. We'll discuss. These are things can be done immediately, but we need to know that the government set up a team to look at this thing with urgency. You can't just say submit it to the Prime Minister or so, and her hands are so tied. We need to meet with her to tell her you put together a team, and we'll work with them. We'll work with them to bring in the best legislation in the world, the best legislation with regards to consumer protection, banking, consumer protection, and so on. The best legislation. We don't have to reinvent the wheel.
I'm the best expert here, so let's move forward with it.
All right. Well,
Gary, is it the correct thing to do to go through Peter Kanhai, for example, to set up a initial meeting with Peter Kanhai and broach the idea with him first?
That is for party issues.
Yeah, yeah.
No, the party issue. Well, Arjun, you and Dr. Ramro, you guys can spearhead that
No,
on
no,
the
but
ground.
no, but what? Yeah, but what I'm saying is, you're operating as a advisory team from the outside.
Right. What I'm
It
saying
has it
is
it has
known.
to be formalized in some way, and I'm asking whether the correct thing to do is to go through Peter Kanhai to see if that is an avenue.
Right. Well, what I'm saying to you, it is known that this advisory team has you as one of its executive representative on the ground there. So you are free to make that initiative and move forward with it. And even though we are outside, but the outside team have an inside team. So we are working in collaboration with yourself, Vade, Dr. Ramrup. I mean, you, Arjun, you have been with me longer in this UNC USA team, and so I have made it known that you were an executive part of this team. So feel free to initiate the conversation.
Yeah, no, I'm asking for the opinion of the group here, whether that may be the most appropriate way to approach it.
I think at this time it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense.
Because I
Or
mean, if things are going helter skelter from all different directions, I don't
Mhm.
know that we would be effective that way.
Correct. So one of the things we should give thought to is why don't we have him here on one day on our program, and that
Oh no, no,
you
I love
know
this kind of discussion. We don't want it in a public forum. We have things to discuss privately. So, Arjun, I would say, go ahead, initiate the conversation with Peter Kanai, that you have Dr. Rambo on the ground with you, have Wade. Wade will more focus on the economic and banking sector, but both of you, Dr. Rambup and Arjun, can lead that discussion with Peter Kanai.
Mhm.
And then we could all the other recommendations. But you guys are physically there, so you're free to do that. And you have
Okay.
my endorsement on that.
Well, yeah. Well, we can chat offline about how we move forward with that, because I think we need
it's a
to
good idea.
formalize it. I think it needs to
Yeah,
be
but
formalized.
that's what I mean. We need to do that, and at least we could try. We could try. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
But I'm saying, but you can physically there. I'm long distance. At the same time, I'm dependent on yourself to help me with that kind aspect of things, where you need to have a physical person there, and you guys, do what you can, and and I will support from this end until I can get there. But the political thing, both you and Dr. Rambo can address it, and and see where it leads at. And but economically, and yourself again, Arjun comes in with this economic thing too, because you are very knowledgeable and skilled and experienced in that. So you could work with Bale alongside that also. With that
Yeah,
aspect
but
of.
I think the budget review is the next key item on the agenda, and I think we should
Yeah.
wait to see what comes out of that, because I don't know what the team at the Ministry of Finance is going to come up with, but that would be a really critical starting point, I think, for us.
Let's see what information you could get. Maybe you have better access than us, being that you're in the field between you and Veda, and see what information you can access far as that is concerned with the budget and what's taking place. And then we could start making some recommendation. And not everything we'll be able to see publicly here, but a lot of it, we will have to do it privately.
Yeah. Okay. Well, on that note, let me say good night to the team,
Okay.
and I'll reach out privately to the gentleman to see what next step would be for us.
And we
Okay.
will
Yes, gen-
to some
Okay.
gentlemen, I'll take leave as well.
That's good.
Thanks a lot for this afternoon, and we'll talk again.
Sure.
Probably next week I'll be available, Gary, because my daughter is here till weekend.
Yeah, so as soon
Well,
as just let me know, we can put things together.
Okay,
Okay.
great. Thank you. So good night, everyone.
Okay. Good
Jonathan,
night.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night.
Yeah.
Good night, guys.
So, Mr. Suman, do you have anything else to say at this point? Otherwise, we just
No,
everyone.
yeah, let's wind down. But there are so many things to be done. I know the Prime Minister she is swamped. Swamped means swamped.
Yes,
Getting
I mean,
it's coming from all directions, and it's adding up to the existing one there. So I don't know when she'll clear her backlog, if
yes,
she ever clears it.
like I said, we have people on the ground. These guys can help us with that part of it. But
Yeah, that's it. There is a problem, structural problem. So I don't. We can do what we have to do. I think I told you I've drawn up a pilot project for security.
yeah, we have we'll discuss that. We have mouths to feed, and a hungry man is an angry man, so we got to see
Yes,
about that first. All
they
right.
say, yeah, I haven't, done it already. I review it from time to time and add things here and there, but I don't want to burden anybody with this as yet.
Yeah, so we will discuss it. So thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you tomorrow night, 8 o'clock.
Take care. Have a good one, everybody.
Good night, everybody. Thank you, Nadira and Diane. Was it Dane? And who else? There's Rudy, uh, Carol, and everyone that's listening. Thank you for joining us tonight. See you guys tomorrow at 8 o'clock.